a disclosure. Thank you very much. Hi, this is Carlton Hunt. I'm currently chair of the Energy Committee. Pursuant to Section 20, Chapter 20 of the Acts of 21, an act relative to extending certain COVID measures adopted during the state emergency. This meeting is the Energy Committee for the town of Bridgewater. Will be fully remote and accessible to the public through remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No person will be in attendance. Basically, underneath this ruling, we take votes by voice vote, is my understanding. And I will also note that I was going to talk a bit about Robert's rules. We typically would close the meeting underneath a motion, but Robert's rules does allow an individual chair, seeing no business being taken place, to declare a meeting adjourned. So that's my piece. Kristen, welcome.
Hi.
and since I don't know, you don't have your video on, you can turn it off in a minute, but we'd all like to at least do a screen dump of all of our pictures.
Oh, good idea. Yeah, I'm having an issue with my video. For some reason, the permissions on my laptop are not allowing me to open it.
That's fine.
I'm going to keep the element of surprise alive here.
Well, actually, I got surprised because the town manager was planning to be here. He can't make it because of some last minute things came up. So I've got a little bit more information. So basically, this meeting is an organizational meeting, and the agenda calls for the election of the chair, vice chair, and a recording secretary. Right now, I'm acting as the chair since I carried that for quite a while. Do you all want to make nominations and do formal votes, or do we want to just do a consensus?
I'll nominate you for chair because I have no experience in this, and don't want me to.
Okay, I'll second that. Anybody else object? Or otherwise, we'll take a vote then. There's no further discussion. We'll take a vote. Basically, Josh, I'm going to ask you to do it because I don't have this in my notes here.
Sure. Carlton?
Yes.
Tom?
Yep.
Kristen?
Yes.
You're muted. Kristen, you're muted. You can use the thumbs up button too.
Thumbs up.
There you go. So, thank you. Wow, we are getting educated. Okay. For the moment, what I had been talking with Josh before was minute taking. Basically, it's a recording secretary, and the town is working with him a little bit more on who will do that. Just so you know, somebody has to do the minutes. Josh will do the minutes for this meeting. And basically, maybe we'll postpone a recording secretary to the next meeting because of time, if that's okay. I'm going to review the administrative code as part of my briefing to you all to try to bring you up to speed. I'm going to stop right now and ask everybody to introduce themselves. So I'm Carlton Hunt. I'm Austin Street, and I live in Bridgewater for 36 years.
I'm Tom Carson, also on Austin Street. I've been here since 1978.
Kristen?
Yeah, I'll go next. I'm Kristen Zarelli, and I've been here since 2006, and I live on Tecumseh Circle, right near Berniers.
And our guests are Lisa Sullivan. Could you give a brief update as to who you are? You're muted. Get those fingers working. It doesn't want to let you talk.
Okay, I think I'm good now, right? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Lisa Sullivan. I work for the Department of Energy Resources. I'm your Green Communities Program Coordinator. I also live in Bridgewater. I've lived in Bridgewater since 1994. I live on Sharon Court. I worked for the town for 16 years. I've been on the planning board. I worked for the Old Colony Planning Council, the Regional Planning Agency for a couple of years. And now I work for the state for the Department of Energy Resources. So I've handled the grant, the Green Communities Grant, from the town's perspective, from the regional planning agency's perspective, and now from the state's perspective. So I'm here to help you with your green communities needs, and I'm happy to be working with you.
And we'll talk in a little bit about some of the requirements that we are a green community. We have been for some time, but that has certain requirements that goes along with it, like an annual report and competitive grants. We have to apply for those, et cetera, but I'll go over that in a minute. We also have Pat Neary attending. Pat, can you just introduce yourself?
Oh, yes, and thank you. Hello, all. I am just a curious resident. Anything to do with the environment is of interest to me. I live over at the NIP, so I think that motivates me many times. And it's good to see that you have a full committee now.
It's been a while coming. Thank you very much, Pat. You're welcome to participate. Right now, I'll try to keep it informal, but we've got a fairly large agenda, but it's mostly trying to set up future meetings and discussion points so we can move forward. Going back to the agenda, basically the open meeting law, which you all should have read. If you haven't, please do. But basically the open meeting law does not allow us to debate in terms of public issues unless we're in a formal meeting. We can talk to each other about agenda items, and we can communicate both orally and written that way. But otherwise, if it's any kind of, I or you all could send information to the committee, but that needs to be marked with not for deliberation except in public meeting. Therefore, we would only deliberate and talk about issues formally in terms of public meeting. There's a lot of other requirements, but those are the ones I think we need to respect very much so. In terms of the rules of committee engagement, I follow and the town follows Robert's Rules of Order. And that basically sets up hierarchies in terms of basically motions, et cetera, secondary and tertiary type things. I'm not anticipating us to get into heavy Robert's rules, but I do want people to understand, and if you need to check it out, there is a quick summary on the website that tells you what you can and can't do and should do. So I'm going to ask, I think I'm allowed to share my screen, and I'm going to go here, hopefully. Yes, okay. So I'm going to talk to you for a bit, for a moment, about, I'm going to have to move you to another side here on my screen. So I'm going to talk about 4 areas: the Energy Committee's history, the role in our charge, outcomes from the Green Community designation that we've had, municipal solar energy purchase, which we do now, and then some future issues that are going to come up. So, Lisa, if there's anything that you need to go to, or for whatever reason you don't want to sit in this whole thing, let me know now and we can go from there.
I mean, whatever you want to do, Carlton. How long do you anticipate the meeting to be?
I'm hoping to keep it to an hour at this point.
I can certainly hang out for the hour.
Okay, thank you so much. So
No problem.
basically, for those that are new to the committee, the Energy Committee was created in 2008 by the Board of Selectmen. It was appointed under the prior Master Plan Implementation Committee. The reason it was appointed to us is because under the Green Communities, to apply for to become a green community, you needed to have a committee that was dealing with energy issues. So that happened in 2008. We started very small, but small projects. We have a big belly solar compactor that we acquired. It's somewhere in Bridgewater. I have no idea now. I would like to find out where it is.
I know where it is.
Where is it?
I think it's at the high school. I remember seeing it at the high school. It was at the rec field for a while, and then I remember seeing it at the high school.
Well, one of the actions we need to do is find out, because I would actually like it to go down to Music Alley here in Bridgewater. There's a lot of trash that gets generated, and I think we need to move that forward. Thank you, Lisa, very much.
I think it's, last time I saw, I mean, it's been a while since I've been to the high school, but I thought it was in the high school out front. I thought, so I think they use it.
We have a starting point. One of my committee members will be out chasing it around shortly.
Excuse me, Carlton. Carlton,
yes.
I think they moved it up to the track, so it's not getting any use there.
Okay, that's good. It's actually the towns, not the districts. So
right.
We'll have to move forward. I'm not sure where the transfer came.
Yeah.
So when we got started, we worked with the consultants and the Board of Selectmen on the designation. That became a green community. The town meeting adopted the green community designation in 2011. It's hard to believe it's been 11 years, 12 years. And it became effective to us July 1st, 2012. So we have acquired a significant amount of funding from the Green Communities Act and organization. In 2011, when the charter came in, the town manager at that point, and when he developed the admin code, separated out the Master Plan Implementation Committee, made it be the Master Plan Committee, which is no longer functional, and then also the Energy Committee. And I've held on, I was in both of those, but I've held on to the Energy Committee since its inception. Basically, if we look at the admin code, each of us are appointed for 3 years, and we only have 3 members. The committee is charged with advising. There are 3 designations in the town, committees, boards, and commissions. One is advising, one is ministerial, and one is regulatory. We don't have finances. We don't handle money. We make recommendations to the town in terms of things. So we're just an advisory committee. But the important part is that we have a charge by the administrative code that says we have to advise on energy conservation efforts, the physical plant, all municipal and school buildings. The interesting part to me is we've never been asked to comment on school buildings, also streetlights, vehicles, and equipment. And we may recommend methods to monitor and manage energy costs. So that's part of our job in terms of how do we go forward. So basically going on to the committee, it shall advise concerning applications for grants from federal and state sources and recommend changes to the town ordinances to promote energy conservation and renewable energy use. Importantly, we work with pretty much everybody. What they call town administrative code calls multiple member appointed bodies to carry out our mission. In other words, we can talk to various committees, we can talk with department heads, etc. And we're supposed to work together. The one thing that's important, and I only highlight it because it doesn't happen, it's happened once in the last, I don't know, 8 years, is that the committee shall meet at least annually with the town council to give them input in terms of what energy issues we see coming forward or needing in terms of conservation and renewable energy. The town manager, who couldn't join us tonight because he had an appointment come up, basically says we meet as necessary so we can set our own scheduling, and we meet directly with the town manager and all municipal departments and other staff to accomplish our mission, which is basically to advise the town on energy conservation and et cetera. And I've said it, we're advisory, so I'll go on from there. Just very briefly, I want to talk about the major foci of what we've done since we became a green community. And basically, alternative energy abdication and electrical vehicles are the areas that are the focus that I think we have going forward. In terms of alternative energy, and I'll provide probably more than you want to hear, we're sourcing our electrical energy from a solar field right now. And I'll present some details and data on that because I'm a data person. We advise and have advised on solar energy installation zoning ordinance. Way back several years ago when the first solar field down on Fireworks Circle came in, that effort resulted in a solar zoning ordinance that probably needs some updating. And I have worked on an energy zoning ordinance, wind energy zoning ordinance, and I'll go into that a little bit more, but I do believe wind is another source of energy that we should be discussing down the road. There are a number, and I'll go into this in detail, there are a number of large town parcels that the town owns that include the golf course parking lot, the police station parking lot, some other areas that are amenable for solar energy and possibly wind energy. And then the other thing is we're really advocating for the reduction of municipal energy use. I'm particularly, and hopefully you guys will be interested in electric vehicles. I had a guest last weekend who told me that Las Vegas, and I've researched it some more, actually purchased and has put online, it's an electric fire truck. I didn't think that was possible when I go and study it. And I'm going to ask folks to do a little bit more digging on their own, is to look at that, because I think that's the kind of electrical vehicle we could benefit from. Anyway, those are just some of the places we focus. And because electric vehicles are becoming such a wave right now, there are issues around lithium batteries on those vehicles. And if you're doing some kind of charging and storage unit in your home property, there's also the potential for lithium. It is a combustible element, can create some very significant fires, and it's not easy to put out. So I think we need to think about zoning around that and some planning. I'm going to stop for a minute and see if anybody has questions over my input so far. Hearing none. Basically, there's several types of green community funding we've had. It's over $1.5 million in funding that we've put forward. Most of that's from the Green Communities grants, over $1 million, and then some National Grid incentives and some discounts that we've been given. So out of the $1.5 million of investment that we've done on energy conservation, the taxpayers of Bridgewater have directly come up with about $193,000. That includes things like insulation, equipment upgrades. The police station years ago had a control unit that didn't have the brain, it didn't actually have the controller. So the Green Communities and the Energy Committee got an audit of that building, and through that audit, they got a control unit into the building, and it cut their energy costs. We've done some HVAC installations, one at the Memorial Building. The library has a historic room that we put an HVAC system in there. We've done several heating plant type upgrades, the library being one of those. And then water pumps have been upgraded so that they operate more efficiently. One of the big things that we've done through Green Communities is streetlight LED conversion. That happened just, I think 2 years ago, it went fully online, and I'll show you how much cost that's saving us in terms of town budget. We also have purchased 4 town vehicles. I'm not watching people, so if you have something, just speak up.
I have a question.
Yes.
What's the DOER discount? What's the DOER discount?
I've got to check that, because that's funding that I've seen somewhere. And let me double check that. It may have to do with the streetlights. I'm not sure.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry. I just have never seen that.
I saw that myself, and I said, I bet somebody's going to ask that question. Thank you very much.
I agree with your funding. I do agree with your funding, though, the $1.8 million. I definitely, that's the right number. So that's the most important number.
And that's a significant amount. And just conversationally, that does limit how much, that we've reached so much money. We do have a limit on our competitive grant. It's capped at, I think, $100,000 per project. Is that application? Is that correct?
Yes, Carlton, that's correct. What we do is we limit people that have received $750,000 or more in competitive grants. So we don't count that initial grant that you received of $200,800, because, for example, that's a formula based on population and per capita income. on top of a base of 125,000. So like a city like Boston probably got close to $1 million. So that's why we take out that initial designation grant out, and then we just count the competitive grants toward that 750 club. So you've received $807,000+ in competitive grants.
That's great. Thank you so much. I didn't have all those details, but you're letting us know we've done a good job. We have a long way to go with some of these things. So what I'm going to talk about here right now is basically the energy consumption trends from 2009, our Green Communities baseline year, and 2022, which is most currently. And the state provides municipal energy, MEI, Municipal Energy Initiative, I think. They provide a database that automatically accesses electrical and gas use on accounts that the town owns and uses. And so what you have in that is a wonderful product that you can cut the data many different ways. This is basically an overall energy use. One of the goals and requirements of a green community is you cut your energy by 20% overall. That means fuel, gas, diesel, oil, electrical, whatever you have that's using fossil fuel at some level. The goal was 20%. And you'll see on the right here, this is from 2009 to 2022, and actually 2022 still waiting for some upgrades to the Columbia Gas accounts. There's a hiatus there because of transition in ownership, so we're a little bit short there. So basically we're looking at a pretty flat area. You know, we were zero, we went down, we did all sorts of things early on in the period, and we've kind of held on to it, but we're doing a little better, and I'll tell you why we've gotten back down to 3%. You'll see our buildings have done very well. For a number of years, they went down, and then they have been level for the last several years. Open space is low in terms of total energy use. This is BTUs. And the big change is in the street lights that we're using. You'll see our street lights pretty much annually, they're going to go with the sun. So in the winter, they're on more, they cost more, and in the summer, they're off more. Okay,
one thing I would comment, Carlton, is this is your overall use, right? So the town is growing, you're using more water and sewer, you're pumping more, the buildings have grown, you've gone through COVID, sometimes the schools were forcing ventilation. This doesn't have a building stock change calculator like your annual report does to account for like how the buildings grew compared to the baseline year. So 2%, it doesn't mean you're not doing well. It just means that, you know, as most towns, they're growing as opposed to reducing in scale.
Great, thank you. I kind of knew that, but it's important to have that kind of conversation and understanding. So the other thing that's of interest is that and now I don't have my cursor. My grandkids just got all here and they're a little bit noisy. So I'll try it another way. You'll see here, this is the vehicle fuels. And back in 2019, we didn't have very good data. And so over time, it's gotten better, but we also were in a recession back in that time period. So building use has gone down. Fossil fuel, vehicle fuels, diesel and oil, diesel and gasoline has gone up. But since about the 2015, it's been pretty steady, and depending on years, et cetera. And then the other thing that's different here is we didn't report the fuel oil and diesel costs used at the sewage treatment plant and at the, primarily the sewage treatment plant until about 3 years ago. And so basically you see that big jump, but that skews our baseline a little bit too, because it's more use now than we had projected back then. So it does become a bit of a problem.
But is that mostly for generators?
Actually, there's four accounts that use fuel oil. There's a heating unit, I've got the accounts, but it's basically 4 different elements. Part of it is oil for heating oil, fuel oil for the administrative building. It's also diesel for powering different pumps, emergency, that kind of thing. And I think they have to heat some of in the wintertime, they have to heat things. So it's a variety of uses. There's 4 different accounts in that.
Yeah. I have a feeling that a lot of this might be due to all the, you've had a lot of housing come online. We've had a lot of housing units.
Yeah, to be honest with you, that does get into the water and the pumps, et cetera, that are generated there. But the fact that my main point here is the step up, the circle here, is because we started reporting fuel use at the sewage plant. I would have expected it to be over here in this area, not here. But that's just what, there's a lot of little nuances in here that I'm trying to deal with right now. And I think the bottom line is that in spite of all of that, we're still seeing us, I'm going to say, holding pretty steady. I think it's very positive that we've managed to balance everything out in a way that our energy consumption is not dramatically increased as a town. I'm going to go through a number of trends. This is the police station. I told you about the controller. You can see here, this is the annual rolling 12-month average that you see up in the black line on these. There's electricity and gas, gas in terms of heating. And the controller came in place back in FY, I don't like this graph. Anyway, we put it in, it did save some energy and it's been pretty constant. They did a remodeling of the building back in 4 or 5 years ago. And the fact that the remodeling caused more gas use, that bumped it up. But, you know, that's all done in terms of making comfort, making the system more functional. One of the things I found out this week when I talked with the chief was we used to use propane at the police station. It was for the repeaters. That's for the radio system. They used to have propane and they used it and they discontinued that. And so that's why you see that's pretty much zero. The public library, a number of interventions. The critical thing is back in early 2009 and 10, the library was only open 20 hours a week. It reopened and you can see the curvature coming up again here. And then we did the upgrade to the HVA system and that seemed to have had some effect on the overall energy use. And then we have the heating system that got upgraded and that big jump in terms of gas use. I would get gas and gasoline. Gas is natural gas, and they've managed to stabilize that a little bit. So that's another positive in terms of the town. The lower graph is just a cost graph, same thing, rolling 12-month average and then monthly data. Sometimes you'll see a big spike in the monthly data. That's because it wasn't reported, or down in here, it may not have been reported as much. So because those are all done pretty much through the electrical and gas supply companies, those can bounce around a little bit. The senior center had some various energy interventions done, and that's managed it to come under a little bit more control, but it's being used a lot more. So you see out here in the most recent years, it's trending up a little bit. Public library, I got to make sure I go the right direction. Traffic lights, this was really non-green communities. The traffic manager at that point had started putting LED lights in the traffic devices, control lights, and you can see that they basically went down for a number of years and then became stable. I'll find it yet. Yeah, right now you see it's trending up a little bit. I need to get a hold of, or we need to get a hold of the highway department to see if they've gone back to incandescent lights or if we've added a whole lot more street lights, traffic lights, excuse me. And you can see the cost is going up a little bit because it's been stable for about 5 or 6 years. Vehicle fuels, this is diesel on the top and gasoline on the bottom. And you can see that on the left-hand side of the graph, this is all the really not consistent reporting back in the early years. We got a gas buoy and more specific information after it became a city. And so we have a trend here that's slightly upwards in terms of use. And in more recent years, it's sort in the last couple of years, it appears to have gone down a little bit. And I don't know what that's the reason is. And then here's the sewer treatment plant. Again, this is what I talked about before fuel oil and diesel oil was first used. The Academy building, that's an interesting one because when it was being restored here in the middle, I keep pointing at it with my finger. Here, that's when the building was shut down for restoration, and then it got reoccupied. So electrical use was pretty low back then. It got restored, and more people came into the department. It became a fully functional town hall, and it started using electricity. Gas, early years, gas was used a lot, but recently there's not been a lot of gas used. What's going on here is this trend upward in the electrical right now. And I know for a fact that the building struggles to maintain an even balanced temperature throughout the building. Some offices are hot, some are cold, some are extremely cold. And so one of the things that in talking with Lisa in the past, we could get since the building's 5 years old, we could get an audit of that building. And one of the things that I will mention now, because I'll forget it later, is that Green Communities will actually fund some kind of training program to operate these very, very, very sophisticated energy systems like we have at the Academy building. So that's just a point that I'm making here, because the cost down here below, you see the cost is going up pretty good right now.
The natural gas usage doesn't look right to me. I don't see any. Where's the natural? There's got to be natural gas. That's how it's heated. You don't have a heat pump there.
No, but we don't. We have a. To my understanding, it's completely on the electrical system that's being run. There isn't HVAC type system in the back, so gas was used as a backup. That's we can find that maybe
we have to figure that out, Carlton, because I don't remember from the building committee being involved in the building committee that was a it's not a form of heat pump system in there that I'm aware of. There is in the memorial building. The memorial building, the gas use almost went to nothing too, but there's heat pumps in there, and we kept the gas burner and used it only for backup, and it hardly ever kicked on after you put the heat pumps in. But the Academy building, I don't know.
Well, that's a good note to take. Josh, if you would be so kind as to trigger
almost
that.
Looks like you're missing an account or something.
Well, that's true, but that's another issue. I can go check with the finance department and find out if we're missing an account. But as far as I know, we're not, because we had it back here in this period. We had use, and all of a sudden it went away. So I don't know. Yeah,
but they could have changed an account number. It could have been something where this could be one of the weird Columbia Gas accounts. I don't know. I'm not really sure what that's about, but that seems like an unusually large drop off, because we know there's still natural gas use in that building.
Well, we'll follow up on that. Thank you for that input.
Okay.
I had raised that question myself.
We would pay for builder operator certification training, and we also would help you with retro commissioning if you have an audit done and that you find that the building, the set points have been adjusted. Like every building in Massachusetts is going to need to be retro commissioned due to COVID, because of forcing ventilation and all fresh air ventilation and stuff like that. So
that's excellent. Thank you very much.
Excellent points.
That is a competitive grant, correct?
Correct. You can apply for a competitive grant. Retro commissioning has been shown sometimes to, like, when you apply for designation and look to retro commission buildings, we allow up to 7.5% for total energy savings for the building, because we really feel like retro commissioning buildings can have a dramatic effect on the energy use.
I understand. I concur with that. So anyway, that's the major point here, why I'm showing some of the detail. so that the committee can actually potentially, maybe tonight or maybe the next meeting, have a motion to have the town look into that and apply for that. But that's in our discussion period. So there's the Memorial Library building. And again, this building has gone through a bunch of upgrades before, and then we were not occupied for a long time, and then they were occupied, and we put a new system in, and basically the town manager and council started using it, so it was occupied. So it's got a very varied use and history in terms of its use. Most recently, it's being upgraded right now. I have another PowerPoint for that because I'm on the Community Preservation Committee. And basically, we're seeing now that this is during construction in the green arrow. Now, here's the fun one, actually. This is a really exciting one to me. Our annual use of our street lights that come on, they're triggered to come on at a certain time based on the amount of ambient light. And the annual use was very constant for many years, about 527 kilowatt per year. The annual cost was $217,000 a year. When we went to the LED, we went from 527,000 to 168,000 units, basically KEVs. That's a huge change. It's also not as expensive. We were spending 217,000, and now we're spending 37,000 based on the first year's data. So our annual cost, we've avoided costs by doing that upgrade, 180,000. That's essentially the amount of money the town had to put into that project. So we basically recovered our investment, and from now on, it's what I will call profit. I find this, while it's a small percentage of the total use, it's a very dramatic use and a wonderful example of the Green Communities funding that we've received. And I had to strongly argue the case to get LED lights. Don't worry about the data. That's just to show that there's data for everything. What's in green is the building use by year and what percentage change. On the right-hand side, you'll see the percent change. In the buildings in green, it's about minus 10, about 10% change in, I forget the word right now. Anyway, it's 10%. The open space is a little bit off, down. But the other side of the coin, as I mentioned earlier, the street lights is down 68% less. And vehicles are up about 34%. So it's a very mixed bag of pluses and minuses in terms of total energy use. But when you balance it all out, it's like that first graph I showed where we've been pretty constant over time. This is a very complex graph. I don't like this kind of graph, but that's what the state provides. What you look at is the height of the bars. These are different fuels like propane, diesel, gas, there's oil and other uses, and then electricity. And what you see is back in 2009, the greenhouse gas CO2 emissions the town had were fairly large, but you see that area narrowing significantly over time, so that we've actually come down over time in terms of discharges to greenhouse gas. And basically it's down about 24%. And we're at this point, I have to change my slide here. Yeah. The cost is about $1 million, as I pointed out. Anyway, we're doing well in terms of the greenhouse gas overall. Everything else seems to be fairly constant over the last many years. So here's some conclusions I want to draw from this presentation, and I apologize if it's a bit too long, but I thought you all needed to hear it because it's important to understand going forward. So the Green Communities 20% goal was not achieved, and the current overall energy consumption is about 22% higher than that goal. About 2% above what we used to use. Recovery from the 2009 economic slowdown and budget woes is demonstrated in the vehicle fossil fuel trends. We added more vehicles, fuel burning vehicles, and the library had its reduced hours and energy trends. The weather normalized building energy consumption has decreased about 10% since 2009, but that's only 25% of our total energy consumption. The reduction in building consumption is offset by fossil fuel use increase. I've harped on this a little bit. The town has 4 electric vehicles that we own. We have charging stations that are publicly accessible at the town hall, the academy building. What it did is take the thing you don't see here is because we have no way to quantify it is town employees used to drive their own vehicles to various things, inspectional services would drive projects, et cetera. Now they use an electric vehicle, and that's a positive in terms of overall use. We have better tracking right now. I do spend quite a bit of time tracking the gasoline, propane, and diesel use in town, fuel oil use in town, because that's not automatically loaded in because we don't have these large companies handling those accounts. And again, conversion of streetlight was a real winner. And so greenhouse gas reduction of 24%. There's nothing to be shameful about. So I'm going to go quickly here now. HVA system operation training for the academy building. We've talked about that. Lisa's indicated it's possible. But we do have to have an energy audit, and that's provided, Lisa, help me out. That's provided at no cost to the town through the green communities, or do we have to pay for it?
What is this?
The audit, the energy audits for buildings.
Yeah, the audits would be provided by National Grid. Basically, they have vendors, just like we used to use Prism back in the day. Prism came in and did audits of all the buildings and used those to create the ERP. You can have buildings audited. We used to do it every year pretty much. We'd have little minor audits done where Prism would come in and look at the buildings to see what needed to be upgraded. Sometimes the things were identified in the energy reduction plan. Sometimes they weren't, right? Because technology changes. Sometimes things become obsolete. Sometimes there's new things to add and there's a new focus. So like, vehicles, electric vehicles, those are things that, we've had a lot more focus on in recent years. We're moving away really from LED lighting by going more toward electrification of HVAC systems, real focus on weatherization these days. So those are the things we want you to have. When you look at the academy building for opportunities, you definitely want to look at retro commissioning and see if there's anything we're missing that is using a lot of energy there, that maybe weatherization wasn't done. Maybe it needs, I can remember when the building was first built, it could use some like weather stripping underneath some of the doors. You could see a lot of daylight.
Yep.
And that can let a lot of energy out.
Yep, that's still happening at least one door.
Yeah, so that door has been like that. I know exactly which door it is. It has a 1.5 inch gap at the bottom. So that needs weather stripping at the bottom. So they look at for things like that. So it's a good thing to do. Occasionally pick a vendor off of National Grid's vendor list, have them come out, look at that building. You can look at the townhouse. You can look at the Memorial Building's under construction right now. Some of those buildings that haven't been looked at for a while, and see if we can find measures to do there that can make them more comfortable for the occupants and more energy efficient.
Great. So you guys are inculcating all of that into our future discussions on this. So one of the things I wanted to point out, the townhouse is undergoing a reuse study. It has recently won a grant to repair the roof. And one of the things we found out when we started looking at this is around the upper boundary where the vertical walls come into the roof, there's no real insulation there. So there's some, besides putting a new roof on, that has some energy efficiencies. There's an old access door to go onto the roof, and the Mass Historical said that that can no longer be there. So removing that will, and we have infrared photograph of that, the heat loss there is pretty significant. So we're going to fix that when we repair the roof, and that's supposed to happen this fall. The town clerk is right now heading up the reuse committee, and this is the first thing she went after. And so basically, we're trying to figure out, after we get the building cleaned, and it's got black mold in it, that kind of thing, it will have to be cleaned up. And all the town records that have been, I'm going to say, thrown for storage into the building need to be cleaned, scanned, etc. But there are many, we don't have a heating system in that building right now. There's no furnace that's operable. So it's a project that could be done down the road, depending on an energy audit. And I've actually looked into the other kicker on that building is the electrical input to that building also feeds the lights on the common. So those lights, it doesn't look like we've saved much energy once we went and no longer use the building. It's because the electrical energy is actually being used for lights on the common. And those have to be separated at some point. That's not a green community issue. That's a building reuse issue, as far as I'm concerned. And there are lots of options that the green communities and the state DOER have recommended in terms of energy upgrades and how you get heating, going away from fossil fuels as much as possible, more to heat pumps and that kind of thing. So that's down the road. I will remind the committee, since you haven't even heard about this before, that the competitive grant application are due October 7th, 2022. There's a very specific list of what they will fund on a competitive basis. So that's something that the committee probably needs to get involved with if we want to compete for a grant this year or not. But that's a discussion point. And the other thing is that I'll mention is we have an annual report that's due to the state. It's due on November of 2022. Typically, one of the community economic development committee members, not committee, but members have done that work. I have no idea who in that organization actually has been charged with the green community. I don't know. Lisa, you've heard of it, but we're not charged.
I talked to someone this week. I think his name is Sean O'Brien.
Yes, he's the current town planner.
Yeah, Sean, I think, going to request MEI access. I gave him the MEI, Mass Energy Insight is MEI, and that's what takes all of the data for Bridgewater's competitive utility supply and automatically uploads it every month from National Grid and Eversource. And then Carlton has been very kind to continue to upload any non-metered fuels such as gasoline, diesel, oil, propane.
Yeah, and that takes me about 4 hours every quarter to do that. I do it quarterly. It's very complex because I get a data report from the town finance department, and I have to break that down into different uses, et cetera. So it takes some time, and I would like to either transfer it to someone else, jump on board, or actually have the town start doing it. And I also have just recently learned, Lisa, and for the committee, the MEI people can track solar use in a town like Bridgewater, who buys our energy from town. I'll go into this in a minute. But we buy our electrical energy from a solar field, and we can track cost savings, avoided cost for that purchase. So that's just another piece I'm going to get into in a little bit.
Yeah, you probably can. You can always track costs in MEI. We just don't focus on costs, as we really we personally at DOER focus on reducing your energy use, because our hope is to decrease your energy use so eventually it can be sustainable by renewable sources, right? So we look at solar right now as almost a non-metered fuel. It's renewable and we love it. So I'm not trying to say that, but we're trying to account for it because we want to get the true number of how much energy you're using. So that's
right. And that's true from your perspective, but from my perspective, and hopefully the committee's perspective, is that we need to really look at how we're minimizing our consumption.
Yep.
At a building by building, use by use basis.
Yep. And that's why we wanted to have you try to reduce your use by 20% over 5 years. I will tell you that we have seen an upgrade, like most towns are increasing their vehicle fuel use for whatever reason. There are towns that when they come in, they're, you know, if they don't have a large number of buildings, they're at 25%. I think it's important for the committee to know, if they don't know already, is that none of the schools are in Bridgewater's energy reduction plan. So none of the schools are included in the baseline. So all of this $1 million that has been spent has all been spent in town buildings and on town vehicles. None of the money has gone into the schools because the schools aren't part of the energy reduction plan and they're not part of the baseline. So I just want to, so that's a lot of money poured into build like a few buildings, right?
Right. And I did fight, I did do, when I was by myself as an energy committee person, I did work with the building committee for the new school, and I will continue, and we will continue to work on the new fire station too. But basically, I worked with them to at least get it ready for solar on the roof if possible. But they have not approached any of the other buildings that the town owns and is responsible. They've not approached us how to cut the old high school energy use down. That's something that we could put on our agenda to talk about next meeting. So,
well, one of the things you could talk about at a future meeting is whether or not I know I did a presentation when I worked in Bridgewater to the school committee to try to get the school to open up the ERP to allow the Bridgewater buildings in. That would have allowed you to do work in those buildings. They're high energy users, especially that you had gotten to the point where you've checked a lot of your own boxes already in Bridgewater. So,
right.
You know, you have the opportunity to get $100,000 a year, and maybe even some of it could go in toward the school, those Bridgewater buildings. I also want to remind you that you want to take advantage of any new construction assistance that National Grid offers. They offer a lot. Definitely the building committee should be talking, so you get incentives for any HVAC systems that they put in. Lighting, anything that qualifies for those mass save incentives, to make sure they're getting those incentives to reduce your building costs down, to make sure you're getting the most efficient products put in there. And then, you know, the town hall, the one thing I want to say about the townhouse or the town hall is that may be it's not a new building, but when you do a major renovation, it might qualify for National Grid's major renovation. If it's a gut renovation, and that they might be able to help you with incentives and financing, that kind of stuff for work in that building.
Thank you very much for that. I have actually told and mentioned to, we just interviewed an OPM for the fire station, and I sat in on that meeting and have indicated the program you just mentioned that National Grid and Columbia, past Columbia, would provide that input, and the OPM was fully aware of that support. And so I will continue, and hopefully the committee will back me up to get that level, because there's what I'm understanding now from a fire station, there are different heating demands in different parts. The vehicle storage is different than the housing area, than the public area. So you have to have some pretty sophisticated thinking going into how you're going to manage the energy and heating and cooling in those specific areas.
You do. Heat pumps aren't good for the garage, you know, for example, but they're great for the you know, the interior buildings, and you know, where the guys sleep, and you need cooling and heating, and some of the public areas. But yeah, where the equipment can't be cold because some of it has water in it, but it can't. It has to. Those huge bay doors will be opening and closing constantly.
Well, one of the energy, and I'm foreshadowing something I'll be bringing up later today night. There is a rooftop 3 kEV wind generating system that is potentially going in at the golf course, and I have also tried to mention that repeatedly to the fire station building committee, because that could go on the new water train. There's a training tower that they're building on there. That building could support this 500 and 600 pound 3 kEV system to power some of the parts of the building. So I'm pushing for that. This is just FYI for now, and I'll let the rest of you chime in later. Okay. Thank you, Lisa, very much.
Oh, no problem. I saw a lot of your projects. I saw the list. I saw what you were saying about the looking at the parking situation of the golf course. I can remember we looked at that before, and it was going to result in requiring a lot of drainage work and paving.
Well,
impervious pavement and such.
But the good part about it is it's no longer managed by the town. We outsourced the management of the golf course to a private entity.
Yeah.
And I'm not a golfer, but I've been in close contact with those guys, and we're looking at that wind machine going up at the barn. So anyway, those are just some additional points. I'm going to go very quickly over solar energy purchase in town. It's not so much on the efficiency side, but it's also on the cost side. And so off of Fireworks Circle is right here. There are two metered areas off of Fireworks Circle. Town buys its electrical energy from that particular one of those fields. There's also another solar field that was installed on a preferred place, which is an old town dump, trash transfer place, and that's already operable. I don't know where they sell their energy to. Basically, the town contract was that they would provide 100% of our energy demand. We started buying it some years ago at 11 cents per kilowatt hour versus, 18, 19, 20 cents from grid. Right now, we're paying $12.1228 per kilowatt hour versus grid's 19. We're basically saving, because I track this pretty closely, an annual savings is about 16% over the grid supply. So we get credits also, and I do have something that Kim sent me about the solar field. Basically, what she says, I have to read this. The town pays solar vendor on a monthly basis. The same kilowatt is put to the town's national grid account. And that's all tracked in MEI. So we know what the grid cost would be, use and cost. The finance department's accounting team tracks the various amounts of cost and use in an account. And we have several accounts that are accredited with the money. Any excess credited value in it goes to a special revenue fund, is added to the fund the town built to fund the town buildings utilities. So in other words, we have a credit that the town can use to deal with other utility issues based on this. And I had asked for the town manager to come and explain it better than I can. I still don't understand it, but basically we buy our solar and we have a credit. Our costs are down about significant, about 16%, and we've avoided energy costs about $291,000 per year. Again,
and more this year, let me tell you.
I hear you. Well, this is
going. The prices are going through the roof, so this is an amazing thing for Bridgewater. So it's good.
And the fact is this is avoided energy cost in FY22. Sum that out over 10 years, and you'll see that we've saved a lot of money over time, and it's going to get better. Great. The excess credit distribution is what I just mentioned earlier. I'm sorry, I'm a little confused about it, but basically the town is using that as a revenue source. It could we could give the credits to anybody, but they're using it as a revenue source.
You can't give them to I don't know how, I'm a little confused about that explanation. There's a Schedule Z, and the town got to prioritize which accounts went first. Usually they prioritize the largest accounts. So if the academy building was the biggest user, and the library, they'd say, oh, we want to use, maybe the library they don't, because there's a board of trustees. I don't know who pays the bill. Like those kind of things. They keep those things in mind, and they have a Schedule Z. And if you have excess credits, then usually you can have, sometimes you have significant excess credits. And towns usually, some towns just keep, you know,
Accumulate.
getting more and more excess credits. I don't know how many the town has at this point. You can't just sell, I mean, I think there's ways, I think you can only sell them to like another nonprofit or someone in the same.
We could sell them to, we could sell them to the school district.
To the school
or
district.
Give them, provide that, because it's a nonprofit part of Bridgewater. But anyway,
it has to be in the same general area, like the same southeast area, fed from the same transmission or something. It's complicated, but you're right, it is complex.
Well, that's it begs the question that we have another explanation in the future in more detail, maybe walk through some numbers. But anyway, I just want the committee to understand that we not only have a direct savings, but we have this credit that the town gets. And that's something we need to understand a bit more. Because we haven't been asked how they should divvy up the credits. But now that we have three of us, maybe we can begin to hoist that request on them. I'm going to move on because I know my time is getting short. Basically, this is very quick. If you look at the monthly solar supply in the dashed lines versus the monthly demand or use by the town in the solid lines by year, you can see in the summertime, we have excess generation by the solar field. And in the wintertime, when it's dark, we don't have this increase. And so the balance actually comes out. This is just another way to look at this. This is the solar supply in green. The yellow is the town's use. And right now, it looks like the town is, in the last 6 years, has reduced their annual use of electricity. In a positive way. This is just another way to look at it. And the summary slide here is that the blue line is what we get from MEI. That's what the use is. And the solar delivered is in red. And you can see that in 2017, the first full year we were operating, it was quite low, only 78%. We're now running at about 83%. So long term, we're getting somewhere between 83 and 90% of our electrical energy comes from one solar field. I'm not going to get into this because it's too hard. The other piece I'll say about this, solar fields are a very good revenue source because they don't have the issue of more students, more traffic, more police, maybe some fire, but nothing. And this is from this chart is from the master plan that was just approved by the planning board a couple months ago. And on the right, you see the appraised value of the land ratioed against the value of an improvement on the land. And that ratio is highest for solar fields. This particular one is on Bedford Street. That's the fireworks circle area. You see the ice arena down here on the left. You can see here that the building to land value ratio, and you can see other. This is in an industrial area, and you can see they have the New Bedford Plaza, et cetera, have AA Metro. They have significant amounts, but solar fields have the greatest appraised value versus ratioed against the appraised land value. And if you look at the property tax revenue, right now the Bridgewater Ice Arena, for some reason, has some of the highest revenue that's coming in, but solar farms provide a revenue relative to the area. They're very good, so that and they don't have the downside of additional expenses. That's just a sales point for the solar field. So summary wise, I am finally ending up. I'm going to let everybody else talk in a minute. We've held steady on its overall energy use for 12 years. I think that's a positive. The conversion to LEDs was even more positive. Solar energy proof has reduced our electrical cost by about 15%. They have very good revenue for the town, and failure to maintain buildings and equipment will negate positive energy consumption gains over time. In other words, we don't take care of our buildings. from an energy perspective, we're just kind of batting in the wind. So very quickly, there are several solar areas in Bridgewater. There are installations out at Curve Street, the university, Coins and Things, on Bedford Street, and the 2 solar fields that I mentioned earlier. Those are the locations. There is a future one coming in. If you look up in the upper right corner, up here, this is 8 acres in Bridgewater that is currently being brought up to the level of the former Halifax landfill. They already have all the permits and agreements in place to put a major solar field on top of that. And Bridgewater has 8 acres in there, and that's a positive for us. And then the other thing that I've personally followed for a long time is that there are potential solar on town-owned land. Why is that valuable? A, you get lease money, and B, you get revenue from the appraised value of the improvement. And so there's 2 areas out on the east side of town. There's 2 areas on the west side of town to include the golf course and the old Chafee farm where they put highway rubble. And then the last one is, well, second to last one is the, there's 8 acres out by 24 that the town owns. And recently I talked to the police chief, and he's very interested in having a solar canopy in the police parking lot, for not just the energy, but more importantly, for protection of the vehicle, for storm protection, that kind of thing. So there's many reasons to put solar on some of these beyond just the energy production. So these are the 2 locations. This is on East Street. It's a former sand area for the town. It's owned by the town. It's basically at least 8 acres, possibly more. And the other one here is the Wyman Meadows behind the well. It's down away from the street. You can't see it from across the river, but that's another potential area. This is the police fire station parking lot area. And then here is the Chafee farm on the upper left here, and down here is the golf course, which again could be several acres or not so many acres. This is just a complex slide that I'm not going to get into, but I've done some work in trying to see what the revenue we could generate if we put it on those parcels. For example, on East Street, we could put it's an 18-acre parcel. You could put 8 acres of solar or 14 acres there, depending on what you want to do. And basically that generates from lease money and appraisal money, something on the order. And lease money range from $200 to $2,000. Who knows what the real rate is right now, but let's say it's $1,000. The medium rate here is you have significant income, and I keep pointing at it with my finger. Up in here, you can see that the 8-acre field out there might generate $49,000 in revenue per year. And down here, if it's 14, it's 86. The really big one, the big winner is on the Chafee farm. If we put a 20-acre field on top of that area, it's in the middle of residential, but it's up on a hill and it's covered with trees. I've tried to look at the line of sight from the highways and stuff, and it's a very positive potential place. The bottom line is that somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 of revenue could be generated by town putting solar fields on these unused properties right now that we have. And the last one is the Orb. This is the wind machine that's developed by a local developer. It's bird friendly, bat friendly, weighs 575 pounds, generates anything from 220 volt to 240 AC or 12 volt VC, 24V, and 48V DC. So it basically returns, in terms of square footage, a rooftop solar gets about 18 watts per square foot. This Orb would get about 83, and it generates 3 kilowatts. And it's a very positive thing that I am actually trying to sell. So finally, Carlton gets to stop. Some needs. We need a townwide comprehensive energy assessment. Some of the municipal facilities, as we mentioned already, need audits. We need to develop some policies for distribution of excess solar important and urgent revenue. It's like the credits we're talking about, where do they go? Is it best serving the town, or would it serve better for the school district to have that cost? We need to become more EV ready in our zoning. We need some discussions around that, whether or not we need some zoning to enable that, or just let people do it as they want. And we need to explore safety needs for the current emerging storage systems. I mentioned earlier, lithium can be very volatile. Fire chief told me that they put 10,000 gallons of water on a vehicle on 24 that was battery powered. And so it's very challenging in terms of how your fire department is prepared for that. And the uncertainties I have right now is how committed the town is to more energy conservation and production, and the role of the committee going forward. And that said, I'm going to stop sharing and let you guys react.
Thank you for that presentation. Just shooting that out there, that it was really well organized, and I just learned a lot and I listened a lot. And yeah, thank you for that. That's a good intro to the Energy Committee.
You're welcome. I knew you guys needed some background, so I thought I'd put that together, and now we can get down to nuts and bolts as we go forward. Tom, anything?
And I can't see anybody. Everybody disappeared on me here. Carlton, still on yours? We're still on your screen. But it was a lot to take in for one night, but a bunch of things I like was the my big question is the solar credits. Is there use by date on that? How many credits can you build? Do you have to use them in a certain time frame? Negotiating with the school system to swap them out for them in some process, and how do we get the school system in on this energy field we're in? Because I don't see them being very efficient over there.
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I have approached them in the past. Go ahead.
No, that's just my thoughts. I just heard. I've got to let them sink in and think.
Well, I'm thinking that we need to brief the one thought I have is that we maybe want to get on the agenda for the school committee and brief them as to what Green Communities is and how we might interact, et cetera. Lisa would have to help us a little bit to think about that, but that's my thought, is to get them up to speed on it.
I'm happy to help with whatever I can. I think it's a good idea to find out what the school's doing. They could be in performance contracts. They could have, for their school buildings, they could be doing things that we're unaware of. There's certainly a lot of newer buildings. I'm not, they could be buying solar energy too, or, they could have credits. I don't really know what they're doing.
Well, the Bridgewater schools I know are not buying it.
Okay.
And I don't know about Raynham. They get their supply from a town-owned Taunton.
They could be doing something like a Constellation New Energy kind of thing, like a third-party supplier where they're reducing their rate. They could be buying a percentage of renewables. I have no idea what the schools are doing. So I think you could ask them first and see what they're willing to share.
That's a good point. We can reach out. Anybody on the committee would like to take that issue on? Just talk to the school department and superintendent.
I'll do that.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay. I'll talk to the school superintendent. See if he can give us some insight on how if they even want to talk to us and see what goes.
Yeah. And maybe they're doing some things already, sustainability measures. They probably have, a lot of schools have put in those, we don't focus on water, but those things the refillable water bottles, as opposed to using plastic bottles. They make those stations available. They recycle, those kind of things. What are they doing? What are their sustainability efforts? What do they do about their purchase of electricity and gas? Are they already doing something? Are they tied into a contract? Would they be even interested? Do they need our credits? That kind of thing, Those are
Do they
questions.
need our credits, or do they need to actually try to acquire the solar directly from another solar field?
Maybe. That's
And we do
exactly.
have 2 solar fields, right?
Was that, Tom?
There are 2 solar fields down there off of,
Well, one of them, I understand it supplies its energy to Stonehill.
Mhm.
all of it. So they don't have
I
any.
assume so. I'm assuming all of it. I don't know. I just know that they're not quite meeting the contract with for Bridgewater. But that 8 acres that's going in out at the old Halifax landfill in Bridgewater, I don't know what they plan to do. Is it community solar? I don't know. So, but Lisa makes a really good point. Talk to the school about their sustainability efforts, and if we can start with the administration and then go to the school committee at that level.
Yeah, and it might be a chance to ask about the Big Belly too. If they're using it, if they're not really using it to its full capacity, maybe it's something the town could discuss, you know, how you might have a better, you know, place for it. Who knows? I mean, just open discussion.
Okay.
Often, Tom, they won't know what that is. It's a solar recycling bin. It's pretty sizable.
It's a compactor. It's a trash
compactor, but it runs on solar.
And it's at least 10 years, 12 years old.
So. Oh my God, you got it very close to 2009 when you were designated, right?
That was the first thing we did.
Well, you were designated in 2011. Your baseline's 2009.
No, we did that. That was one of the first things one of the committee members said we should get, and we went ahead and moved forward on that.
Yeah, we don't pay for those anymore, and they're great. People love them.
It just, yeah.
Last time I was up by the track.
Yeah.
Pat was saying.
I mean, I would keep an eye on DEP to see if DEP ever offers anything, or if they're on, you know, if they're on the state bid list, if you were ever wanting to buy one for different areas, if it was going to reduce manpower, that kind of thing. They might be available on the state bid list. I'm not really sure.
Well, there's a couple of opportunities. I know that there may be some development at the old mobile station going on. The little park, if that develops into a park, we're going to have trash control. So
down there.
There's tons of places that we can advise the town in terms of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have my agenda in front of me right now. I think the next thing was just a series of discussion items, and it's at the pleasure of the committee. Do you want to set first of all, do you want to set a meeting for later on to go over that a bit more, or do you want to try to dig in for another 10 minutes?
Here.
Yeah, we can about 10 minutes here.
Carlton, I would just recommend from the Green perspective that if you're interested in doing any audits, if you're really interested in getting in that October 7th competitive grant application for something for the Academy building, you want to reach out to a vendor on that list and get them out to the building. So it's already August 22nd. If you don't feel pressured to do something by October, because there'll be another competitive grant application in the spring, but I'm just reminding you, it takes time for them to do the audit and then to put all their findings together.
I personally am willing and want to push it as hard as I can and as fast as I can, but we do not have a designated person. We've heard maybe we have, but we don't have a dedicated person that supports the energy committee that we could say, this is what we want to have happen. This is advice. Please tell us to go forward.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll take that monkey on. I have to meet with the town manager tomorrow on another issue, so I will try to bring it up with him so we can go forward. But the other things I had on there were just general discussions. So there are things like several links that I put in the agenda to electric fire trucks. And I blown away by one of them that has 6 hours capacity. And then they can plug it into another truck and keep it going. So it's an Australian one. So I'm sure it's cha-ching. But on the other side of the coin, you may get a more powerful water stream out of that because you can put more electric pumps in there and that kind of thing. So
Also consider, I don't know what the police department has done as far as hybrid vehicles.
No.
We help pay for hybrids. The Mass State Police have gone hybrid.
Good point. Okay, that's another action item.
Almost every town has hybrids now. So
the one thing I tried to push before was the current ones. They don't want to shut them down. They avoid. Mass General Law says you can't idle for more than 5 minutes. They don't want to shut the police cars down because they don't want to lose the computers have booted up, and they don't want to have to reboot the computers. But you also will. I believe green communities will allow you to buy a control that starts the engine automatically if it gets low on battery, that kind of thing. So there's lots of technology out there.
The hybrids aren't shutting down their computers because nobody would want them. The hybrids, the new hybrids that the police are buying are sustaining battery life. And if Mass State Police put many more miles on their cars than local police do, if Mass State Police is committed to going all hybrid vehicles, these are not plug-in hybrids, they're the braking hybrids, okay? Then I think that it would be a good thing for Bridgewater to look at if they haven't already. And your local communities have them. Whitman has them. Other communities nearby have them.
Is there a list of places that the state has for those organizations that have these, or is it on web?
I can send you information, but I'm telling you that almost every town in the state has some hybrids now.
Good. That's another action item from out of this meeting that we'll explore.
And what I was trying to get at is I think by taking the vehicle fleet, the 30-something or 40 vehicles that the police department is using and what the miles they're putting on and using for gas, it would make a much bigger impact than an $800,000, $1 million fire truck. Right now anyway, but I think the cost of those vehicles will come down as well, and they'll become more popular, just like dump trucks and heavyweight vehicles. You can start seeing more of that.
Well, and
stuff like that will all be hybrids.
And if those vehicles are assembled, it could be the new energy credits you get. It has to be assembled or parts built within the U.S. and it kicks in 2023. There's lots of potentials coming down the road, and cutting our gasoline bill for the town would be huge.
I will send Chief Del Monte some information, and I will copy you.
Copy all of us. That would be wonderful. Just tell him that this came up in an official.
No. These are reviewed. They've reviewed these vehicles when they review all the police vehicles that are available. If they're on the state bid list, there's all. This is very. I'm happy to share. There's newspaper articles.
Great. More data, more information. Super. So where I was headed for, and I don't have my agenda before me, but how hard do we push on town solarizing some of their properties, and what do we need to do for that? The things about the vehicles, those kinds of things. So policies, maybe we can we can officially talk about agenda items for the next time with us communicating, but only agenda items. So maybe I'll put out a memo. I will put a memo out and saying what areas, having read, seen the PowerPoint, having read the discussion points for this meeting, what do we want to focus on at our next meeting in terms of new business? That said, and it went right out of this old man's head. I think some research is important. I know what it is. When do we want to meet? I think since we're sort of newbies, I prefer meeting about every quarter. But given the fact that some of these competitive grant things are coming up in October, I'd like to meet again in September just to get our feet down more firmly. Is that okay with people?
Okay. Good.
And
I'm going to have my calendar.
Is Monday decent?
Yeah, Monday seems to work.
I'll make it work. Tuesday's better for me. I don't know about everybody else, but
well, the kicker for Tuesday is there's a lot of Tuesday meetings that I go to.
Okay, then that's out, obviously.
Well, all right. Let's set one for like the middle Monday of September. I don't have a calendar up, but.
Well, you can have the 13th or the 20th. Those are the Mondays that you look. No, I'm sorry, those are Tuesdays. The 12th or the 19th, which one would you like?
Kristen, is 19th work for you?
Yeah, that works for me.
All right, let's tentatively schedule a meeting for September 19th, Monday at 7 p.m. Josh, is that okay by you?
Yeah, that'll work for me too.
All right, so let's set that for now. I'll draft an agenda, hopefully tomorrow, maybe the next day. I'll get agenda items and I'll restructure a little bit. Josh has kindly offered to take the minutes for tonight's meeting, but we'll need to see if either Tom or Kristen would like to do minutes.
I don't mind doing minutes.
Oh, I recommend Kristen as secretary. You definitely don't want me taking minutes.
Okay, so going back to the early thing, we needed to reorganize. You guys want to? Did we vote on that? I can't remember. Yes, we did. Okay.
We voted unanimous, Chairman.
Yeah, okay. Kristen, not this time, but maybe for the next meeting, if you would begin to pick up the minutes piece, that would be help. And Josh can help you with that a little bit too, but.
Yeah, I'm assuming so. Actually, my partner's mom does the minutes for the Bridgewater Historical Society, so I'll ask her how that works and what entails from minutes and tracking and things like that.
Oh, well, Josh is the expert. I used to take the minutes for the meeting and write them up also, but I would like to spread the wealth.
Sounds good.
Okay, does anybody else have any other business right now? Because we've gone past the hour I promised.
We're going to try to limit our meetings to an hour or something.
I would like to go to no longer than an hour and a half, but an hour would be the goal.
Okay, that works. That works.
All right. So any other discussions, business or otherwise? Because if there isn't, I would either entertain a motion to adjourn or declare us adjourned.
Are we to vote on vice chair and secretary tonight, or do you want to put that off to the next?
Let's put it off. Let's put it off.
Okay. Think about
I want Kristen to have a little bit more chance to digest on her commitment.
I don't mind being secretary, but yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
And guess where that leaves you, Tom?
Okay, well, we can vote on it. If you want to vote on it tonight, get it over with. We might as well. And,
I move that Tom become vice chair.
Me too.
Okay, well, it's two against one. I'm going to lose anyway, so I'll mind going to your name.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No abstentions. You are vice chair, sir.
No, we need a secretary officially, right? We have to vote on the secretary.
Okay, let's vote Kristen in. I'll move to have Kristen become the official recording secretary of the Bridgewater Energy Committee.
I'll second that motion.
Wonderful.
Okay. Any discussion other than no? Moving on. Those in favor say aye.
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 And those opposed? Abstentions? None. And so it carries. Thank you guys very much. Motion to adjourn.
Just before we do, I'm going to try to get a hold of the school superintendent. The school's just opening. We got a new school opening. I might not get anything back between now and then, but I'll give it a try.
Well, you have until the 19th of September.
All
right. Thank you.
All right. I'll make we adjourn. Don't
second.
Third.
I second. Those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.
Good night, all. Good to meet you.
You too. Good night.